Homage to the Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri, homage to all the lineage benevolent masters. Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all beings, please generate Supreme Bodhicitta before today's teaching. Next, we will continue our comprehensive, in-depth, detailed discussion of the sacred Lotus Sutra today. First, I will recite today's Tibetan oral transmission for everyone to hear and receive of the Lotus Sutra. Śrāvaka division the answer. Śrāvaka division sabada jumbayang topar topa sanji tamchid serva tsevadang chikpadang dondang dungardang yidmo devadang marikpa mamnaka rabribdang yonsu chipa tamchile yonye nambra chorwa division sabba yishidang topdang manjikpadang sanji ji chu manjibadang zamchirji topi shindur topdang damban jiktengi pa tab chimbo lam kepe yishidang bi parurdo sombar nyangji chimbo merkyuwe yiki pambrando bar nyang tsewadang damba di kangsam dingurgi pombo chimbo barwadong odom chambadang tanga yu majikba kangbadang javar semchin stiyadang gawadang nawadang chewadaang nyangandang mekhnagam badang dingurdang yidmab dewadang chikbadang marikbi mamba mannak ravrib dribadang yongsak chibar namba dochagdang jirdangdang tim yongsak chorab shawadang laname bayang tokpar zobab shangchibdang zibibshir Jongarte te shongmatak de semchin namnar tiadang gawadang nawadang chewadaang nyangandang mekhnagam badang dingur yidmab dewadang chikbadang chagbadang zubadang dongwa yongsak dongwadang longshu jibshir dopi jir ji dingur namba mangbo rabdam nyongwa tartar ji tselan chorwadang yongsub sagbibshir tsib shimadang semchin nyarwadang tundrodang tiagnedang shinji jiktendir dingurar namba mangbo rabdam nyongwadang ladang mugurwadang mirdigbadang chabadang digbadang charwi dingurar rabdam mangbo nyongwadang dingurgi pongbong korjang tsegala gamgur shote matag magngang var ngir marig matsur kyor mabjipem jongwi chorwa kangwaram barwadang javi kangsam batir ngombar gani Tedang tetagdar jigirte dingurgi pombo chimbo ter tabi xirjang dingurda shiba yillab shaba mirti barag zigso Śrāvaka ter tabi na ngana semchindadag parti ngi semchindadag dingurgi pombo chimbo ndar tabale yongso tarol shijangi kanga semchindadag tsevadang gawadang gamgur shobadang number tseva shibar gyarwa sanji ki ishi dewa khudam mecham samgi meke badang semchin tetal jimbr shava devjang shaba tertar zöso Śrāvaka tena ishi jirtotang danjar zamchu jirtotang danji garte tab mayim bi semchin dadagla devjang shabi ishi zigbadang toptang manjik bar namba topar shava zinni semchin dadagla chun dadagki ngibrim jongur mangyuro ti jibshir jena semchin Dadagna dopi yondar ngabodagda shinda chagbadang semchin dadagna kangsam di gawa shinda chagbadang tiwadang gawadang nawadang chewadaang nyanganda mengang dobadang dingwaradang yidmab dewadang chigba tarwadang chokzodang yongsok dongwar terwar te dong chambaram barbi kimbadang javi semchin namne mawshongwar te dedagka sanjiji ishi chirtar longshubaran girji devjang shigba tertarag zigso tela Śrāvaka ndartar te devjang Kiev lag top chante la ti to jagte talam ke berjon te der kim barate nen don ni te der la pir la pir jomba chimbo jimba na devjin de Śrāvaka devjin sabada jomba yang to borzo basangi devjin shirbi ishi dans top dans manjik ba dans damba dans devjin shirbi ishi dans top dans manjik ba jabate talam ke be ishi ji odom chamba dans tang barbi kim dans javi kangsam ne semchin namlan dom bishir de tagbasam tomba ndar tarte nyantu tagba dans ransan ji tagba dans shangju sanhui tagba dans tagba khsam ji semchin nam tang de ndada khn dar ke ji song de ke ji kim barwa dans javi kangsam ji zig dans ja dans zhe dans ro dans rxian an ba la gawr mabshid je ke ji kangsam der ngombar gawin dutpa yondan dam je be zhig zo dongwa yongsu dongr ji kangsam da nim jwan de starte nyantu ji tagba dans ransan ji tagba dans shangju sanhui tagba sum bodi tobr ji shi ngan nendele keche nyang dang war te ngi kechi taban daksum jingi kangsum nem jong yushir da somber ji shi ji semchin Thagban the Tagna Gang Pagbar Namlam Pagbar Namji Rapt Topadang Gavachimbodan Dambada Kiechagna Mumpangbar Sinjang Gavatan Gamgur Shopper Kiriti Hombodan Totan Shanchi Yanladan Santan Number Tarat Dangenzandar Numberenji Gavachimbo Raptam Nurin Guru Devatan Yidua Chimbodan Damberin Guru Ji Sharive Dela Semchin Gam Keber Kirate Relative Shaba Jiktin Par Jiktin Pala Jiktin Bala Mumber Yit Chiber Gir Ro Mumber Yichibi Yang Devjan Shaba Tambala Sombroshe to Dela Semchin Kachiki Jatubi Jison Robertoban the Yonsum Yang Levda dans Papa Demba Jukonde Chiber Shava dans Devjan Shabi Tambala Sombroshe dans Ten Yantuki Tobalan Dojan Kansum Name John Ajishava dans Huerna Kimbarwala Shibaka Chik Ratagi Shantan Dopatele Dishir de Shon Artavago Semchin Zayang Lohan Mepi Isidan Tarane Bagan Jevran Dobate Dana the Yonsum Yang Lev Davadan Jodan King Yons Chipper Shevir the Division Shop Tambala Sombra Shete Dana Ransan Digi Tabalan Dojan Kansum Le Shon Ajisherte Huerna Kimba Atene Shibaka Chi Ri Shantan Dopra Stav Shon Semchin Kachi Tamchim Kimbi Isi Sanji 이시 랑숑 이시 로혼 메비 이신도 바테 더너 티오 몽보라 판바던 티오 몽보 데와던 직텐너 냥세와던 라던 마던 티오 파르보진도 바던 판바던 데와던 셈진 탐치 용섬 냥한데 다와던 대정석비 이시던 또도만 직바 콘도 치브르샤 유셔데 대정석비 탐 쫌르시데 데드그너 터바진보란 도장 캉섬네 숑르 지샤오 디유셔나 샤주zan화zan화 진보 지샤테 회나 김바라바테네 시바카지 걸렁가스탄 도피슈르 숑아타고 샤리베 회나 Mete Kim Barwati Nerjon Ted Tomba Tongne Dejan Labra Tarde Jibame Per Rubala Darjan Nora Manvar Sine Shibate de la Jumba Chimbo Chi Yujin Devjan de Shari Devjan Shabada Jumbayan de Borzo Sandy Yang Semchen Sheva Dungarwadan Jibbadan Vaksavadan Sebayons Quand Kansum ne Yons Tarde Devjan Shabatan Birgone Yonten Jibbadan Vaksavadan Sevi no pas namle Yons Tarde Mien Lendepi Deva Tobar Zigne Shari Tedrle Ti Tsena Devjan Shabada Jumbayan de Borzo Sandy Dagla ici dans Totan Manjibam Nzud Mangvaram Kenne Tedr Tamchid Jan Darniki Vertaver Vimber Tix Chetne Semchen Tedr Tamchid Jan Sandji Tarbani Ki Yonsam Nyan Lendebram Zaki Semchen Kanla Susurte Dark Nyan Lende Bram Moksonji Semchen Kant Tamchid Jan Devjan Shaba Nyan Lendavar Nyan Lendawa Chimbo Yonsum Nyan Lendavar Zato Shari Semchen Kant Kansumne Tarwan Gerwa Tedrla Devjan Shaba Santan dans Number Tarva dans Tangin Zanda Nubrnji Badan Papa Dembi Chuk dans Simber Gavaran Gerwa Tamchid Katok Chivjimbrm Zato Shari Dastarte Huerna Kievan the Star Jona Tedrla Jumba Sumtan Tedr Tamchid Jumba Chimbochi Shin De Jumba Chimbochi Shin De Rumbochi Navdan Lemshi Badan Jan Tamchid Badan Katok Chigbadan Jumba Laboji Jumbim Chok Tamchid Jimbi Shirder Zandarma Mayimba Devjin the Shari Devjin Shabbat Jumba and Oberzoba Sandy Yan Darterte Tablam Kebe Tambo Tabasam Tane Shi Tabak Chibani Semchin number Mombomyan Lendaram Zapi Shirder Mama Mayanoti Jishir Jena Shari Devjin Shabana Ishi dans Tobno Manjibe Wamzut Mambo dans Dante Semchin Kunla Tamchin Kimbi Ishi dans Dambichu Tambim Tumgabi Shir Ro Shari Vandarterte Tablam Kebi Tsodan Ishim Gumbraba Devjin Shaba Taba Chimbok Chigbertombir Namjan Di Yan Testava Rubrasha Wo
Now I will give a teach on the profound Lotus Sutra. The very first chapter, specifically the introduction and indeed the dependent origination, has already been thoroughly covered. The second chapter is the skillful means chapter. The third chapter is the parable chapter. So now we are discussing the very interesting parable chapter. Within the parable chapter, the Buddha frequently uses profound parables to explain the skillful means he meticulously taught. Today we will diligently continue with this important discussion. The Buddha said to his esteemed disciple Shariputra, "The Tathagata is also precisely like this." As discussed previously yesterday, this venerable old father was still very compassionate and deeply caring. He really wanted to take his children with him instead of escaping by himself. He truly wanted to gently pick up all of his children and carefully carry them away from everything. But later he came to a clear realization that this particular approach he had initially considered was not at all ideal. In the end, with careful planning, he strategically used various appealing toys to gently entice them out, step by careful step. Consequently, the children were able to safely and successfully make their way outside. In a remarkably similar and profound way, the Buddha actually teaches us about the profound and interconnected concept of the three vehicles. Each and every one of us is like a young innocent child who loves to play joyfully, completely lost in the endless cycle of samsara. I think I've definitely mentioned this important concept before on both Weibo and WeChat as well. Every sentient being in samsara is actually a playful and innocent child at heart. Spiritual teachers, with their profound wisdom and compassionate understanding, guide us on our spiritual journey by diligently teaching the profound Dharma and by gradually and patiently introducing various effective methods of practice. At first, we may not understand anything at all when we enter this Dharma path, but slowly, over time, we come to know the true nature of all things and the true reality of the mind. In the end, within our brief precious lives, we will also gradually come to understand many deep profound truths. It's exactly the same natural learning process. So today, let's continue our meaningful discussion together here. The Buddha told Shariputra that the Tathagata is the same. He is the benevolent father of all worlds, the compassionate father of all sentient beings. He has completely and utterly overcome the profound darkness of fear, the pervasive decay, the deep distress, the blinding ignorance, and the relentless suffering. All of these have been entirely and permanently eradicated. As for the Tathagata, he himself has transcended the 5 kinds of fears. For bodhisattvas at the first stage and above, for example, fears related to daily life, fears concerning their own bodies, and so on. All 5 kinds of fears and terrors are gone. There are no afflictions, worries, or darkness of ignorance. From the perspective of complete severance and realization, this is the virtue of cutting off defilements. In terms of elimination, it is the merit of eradicating these things. And then he has also attained immeasurable knowledge and insight. The wisdom of knowing all that can be known and knowing things as they truly are, wisdom that can penetrate and perceive everything. The 10 powers and the 4 kinds of fearlessness, as well as the 6 kinds of supernatural powers, the 5 powers of wisdom, and so on. Perfected in skillful means and the perfection of wisdom, fully endowed with great skillful means and the paramitas, with great loving kindness and compassion, never feeling any weariness over a long period of time, constantly seeking goodness, always seeking to do good and benefit all beings. Whether it is truly the Buddha's spirit or perhaps his profound wisdom or his enlightened understanding, on the one hand, he himself is not like us ordinary people in the world today. When we are in a good mood, we still want to help sentient beings to make aspirations and to do many meaningful things. But when we are in a really bad mood, we are often swayed by our emotions and feelings. When we are in a bad mood, let alone helping sentient beings, even just living our own lives normally becomes very difficult. Some people, especially when they are troubled by afflictions, are no different from someone who has gone mad. Sometimes even a mad person can be calmed for a while with anesthesia. As for ourselves, it's even worse. It's as if we've completely lost control. We ordinary beings, precisely because we inherently have afflictions within our mental mind stream on the surface, it may indeed seem like we have no afflictions at all. But once the deeply ingrained habitual tendencies stored within our mind stream inevitably resurface, we become scary even to ourselves, and we can't trust ourselves at all. Why did I lose my temper like that? I'm ashamed, it's shameful, I can't face anyone. And then others also wonder, usually they're just fine. Why did they suddenly turn so crazy now? It's something many people can't imagine. This is why our afflictions and habitual tendencies remain terrifying and unbroken. But the Buddha is completely different. In terms of the qualities of cessation, it's like this. And as for the realization attained, whether it's great loving kindness and compassion, or never feeling weary, benefiting all sentient beings, in these particular respects there is not the slightest sense of weariness whatsoever. The Buddha actually spoke about this in the Mahasamnipata Sutra. In the Mahavaipulya Mahasamnipata Sutra, it clearly states, "The Tathagata is diligently active without any rest, continuously tames all sentient beings, meticulously teaches the profound dharma, liberates and transforms them, never abandons anyone, does not eat and does not take any rest. He does not rest, does not sleep, and never gives up. In fact, he possesses many such virtues. On the surface, it may seem that the Tathagata also needs to rest, but in reality, for the purpose of benefiting sentient beings, the Tathagata has always, is not like us ordinary people in the world. After doing a little work, we feel tired, we want to rest, we want to sleep. The Buddha is not like this. A true Tathagata, even if among as many beings as the sands of the Ganges, there is just one sentient being who can be benefited, he is still willing to give up everything. This is the spirit of the Tathagata, the spirit of Mahayana Buddhism. Therefore, when we genuinely liberate all sentient beings, as practitioners of Mahayana Buddhism, we cannot completely be like the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, but after all, we are truly his dedicated followers. We are truly the Tathagata's fans, indeed his die-hard fans. If we are followers of the Tathagata, then we should strive to emulate his teachings. Then at the very least, when it comes to benefiting sentient beings, everyone should also love unconditionally, because worldly love is always, by its very nature, conditional. But we should do our best, even if in the process of benefiting sentient beings we are wronged, attacked in various insidious ways, or even falsely framed and so on. But these are indeed things we should have fully anticipated and clearly known about. So we should also thoughtfully consider it from this particular perspective. We are well aware that some other religions and spiritual traditions in the contemporary world at the present time also actively utilize many diverse and varied methods to effectively spread their own teachings and doctrines and diligently carry out various activities and initiatives in different corners and segments of society. Moreover, they do so without feeling tired or setting conditions. They all share a profound sense of collective identity and a strong sense of organization. So, as for us Buddhists, sometimes in terms of benefiting all sentient beings and promoting the profound spirit of Mahayana Buddhism from a spiritual standpoint, we should be able to stand on equal footing with other religions. At the very least, we should be comparable to them. However, many Buddhists may indeed be rather selfish. Each and every Buddhist is relatively troubled by very many afflictions, quite often due to their relationships with others, you see. Actually, if we have a truly sincere, altruistic mind within us, it seems that handling relationships between people becomes very simple. To such a person, these things are nothing significant. Many conflicts and disputes actually arise from selfishness and self-interest. If we do not have such deep-rooted inherent selfishness and ego attachment, then during the entire sacred process of spreading the precious Dharma to all beings, all kinds of disputes caused by personal interests will naturally and gradually subside. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary and highly beneficial for us to diligently learn from some of the most successful and accomplished people in the world today, the spirit of these missionaries and some of their ideas. Why is it that we often find ourselves without a truly sincere and deeply rooted altruistic mind residing within us? This is indeed a profound question that is certainly worth considerable reflection and contemplation. It is precisely the same situation here as well. It specifically talks about actively benefiting and bringing welfare to all sentient beings. Why did the Buddha do this? The reason is as follows. Because all sentient beings are born within the three realms, which are truly like a decaying and burning house, in order to compassionately save these suffering sentient beings, since all sentient beings inevitably experience birth, aging, sickness, death, and various other forms of illness, as well as worry, sorrow, suffering, ignorance, and darkness. And also the burning fire of the three poisons, greed, anger, and ignorance. He teaches and guides them to attain supreme enlightenment, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which is the ultimate and perfect awakening. In other words, what kind of sentient beings does the Buddha care about? He cares about those sentient beings in the three realms, those who are as if trapped in a burning house. Why should we care about these sentient beings? Because they are all tormented by afflictions and suffering, and are constantly tortured by all kinds of profound ignorance and the three poisons. Day and night they are in pain. The Buddha wishes to liberate them. He wants them to completely resolve such suffering within their own mental mind stream, to attain supreme enlightenment, anuttara samyak sambodhi. He clearly sees that all sentient beings everywhere are constantly burned by the intense raging fires of birth, aging, sickness, and inevitable death, as well as by deep emotional sorrow, grief, pain, and mental afflictions. All sentient beings in the three realms, no matter who they are, whether in the desire realm, the form realm, or the formless realm, all experience such suffering. And also because of the five desires, form, sound, smell, taste, and touch, and the pursuit of wealth and profit, they too are subjected to all kinds of suffering, and they are attached to and pursue worldly things. If we look at society today, how many people are suffering? Most it is they not content, because their desires are especially strong and deeply ingrained, because they have so many ambitious goals they are constantly striving for and passionately chasing after. Many of us, once we enter the complexities and challenges of real life, continue to experience endless suffering and profound difficulties. Everyone feels, I am so unlucky, I'm suffering so much. But in reality, everyone has their own different kinds of suffering. They are enduring all sorts of pain. This is the suffering we experience in this lifetime. If in this life we commit many negative deeds, then in the next life, in the future, we will also experience the suffering of hell. There is the suffering of animals and the suffering of hungry ghosts as well. Some are even reborn as humans or gods, but in reality there is suffering there too. Heavenly beings suffer the pain of falling from their realm. And in the human world there is much suffering from birth, aging, sickness, and death, including poverty, hardship, separation from loved ones, being together with those you dislike, and so on. These sufferings torment us. As stated in the 400 verses on the middle way, 400 verses on the middle way. For the superior, suffering arises in the mind. For the inferior, it arises from the body. Through these two types of suffering, the world is destroyed daily. Those with higher status, the so-called superior ones, experience mental and spiritual suffering. Take many high-ranking officials and intellectuals, for example. They often suffer from psychological imbalance and a lot of pain. Then there are those with lower social status, such as some essential laborers within our society, for instance. When the weather is extremely hot, even their outer shirts are all taken off, just like Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche did. Some of the dedicated laborers we frequently observe on the bustling streets, they also commence their arduous work during periods of extreme and oppressive heat and prolonged dryness, or in the depths of winter amidst the relentless rain, or even when there is treacherous ice and accumulating snow, they are still diligently working and striving to complete their tasks. So some people are tormented by physical suffering, while others are constantly afflicted by mental and spiritual pain, which is extremely distressing. Therefore, every sentient being has their own kind of suffering, and it is truly pitiable. Every day some people have poor health. Some may have severe headaches, chronic foot pain, or serious back problems, constant backaches and muscle soreness, feeling so deeply sad, still continuously suffering. Some people are in a very bad mood. Anyone who suffers from clinical depression, anxiety, or various mental troubles, some people say, well, food and clothing don't really matter to me at all. But my mood is bad, my emotions are off, I just don't feel good, and so on. So sentient beings still, I think, when it comes to these kinds of suffering, they are very much affected. Compared to the suffering in hell, the animal realm, or the hungry ghost realm, ours should be much lighter. So many of us should. Right now we feel at ease in both body and mind and are not yet plagued by any illness. If one day we truly end up or fall into a prison where there is no freedom at all, many people who come out of prison feel that even if we don't have enough to eat in the human world, it's still pretty good, still happy. At least we have our freedom. This is also a kind of happiness, but many of us might not realize it. No matter what, there are all kinds of suffering in samsara, and experience all kinds of profound suffering. These sentient beings are already deeply submerged in such difficult circumstances, yet they actually feel especially joyful and content, find it especially fun and amusing. Every single day is like that. In the daily teachings, it also mentions this, talking about a group of monkeys. The concise stages of the path to enlightenment also cites this example. The forest is surrounded by fire. This is something you should pay attention to every day. You shouldn't think that you are truly happy. In fact, our immediate surroundings are just precisely like what was mentioned earlier, like a few playful children having fun. Just like what was said that day, if there are 10 children, 20 children, 30 children, these are indeed profound and significant metaphors for the hero, the Pratyekabuddha, and the Bodhisattva vehicles, are they not? These refer to different types of individuals who are seeking something. They are unaware and unknowing, unalarmed and unafraid, neither afraid nor truly aware. They do not develop a mind of renunciation, nor do they actively seek liberation from suffering. They run around aimlessly within the burning house of the three realms. Even though they suffer from extremely great pain, they endure. They are completely and utterly indifferent to it, perhaps even thinking that it is somehow quite fun and amusing. The profound and insightful text known as the 400 Verses on the Middle Way articulates a powerful and thought-provoking statement. In this vast and boundless ocean of suffering, which ultimately extends without any discernible limit or boundary, how can those who are foolish, those who are submerged and deeply immersed within its depths, possibly not feel an overwhelming sense of profound fear and trepidation? In other words, the vast and boundless ocean of samsara truly has no discernible boundaries. The sentient beings who are drowning in this ocean of samsara, these foolish ordinary people, they themselves are completely unaware, thinking, I am suffering, I am heartbroken. We know that many people in the world today, unfortunately, are chasing after fame and profit every day, but they don't truly realize that they are in samsara. We have encountered some people before, including some rather famous lecturers, who talk to others about renunciation every single day. Yet they themselves feel that this is very enjoyable and that there is no need for liberation, and have such thoughts. So as beings trapped in samsara, we are truly pitiable. Completely unaware of their perilous situation, utterly unafraid of any impending danger, and entirely without any sense of aversion towards their current predicament, nor any profound aspiration for personal liberation, in such a formidable pit of fire, within such a fiercely burning house, they still play around with a profound sense of amusement. The Buddha told Shariputra, after seeing these tragic, painful situations, the compassionate Buddha thought, I am the loving spiritual father of all sentient beings everywhere. I should definitely rescue these poor, innocent, suffering beings from their deep pain and grant each and every one of these living beings the boundless and immeasurable bliss of the Buddha's wisdom that they need. Allow them the freedom to engage and explore within the profound wisdom and enlightened teachings of the Buddha, and ensure they do not wander aimlessly or become lost in the endless cycle of worldly existence and its transient attachments. In the pit of fire, in the burning house, if they play in the burning house, it is very dangerous. In the end, they won't even be able to preserve their own lives. If they have already been liberated from the burning house and are in the temporary wisdom of the Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas, or if they play within the wisdom of the Bodhisattvas truly, then that is still very meaningful and profoundly significant. If you do not fully understand this fundamental concept, your life will certainly not be truly happy and fulfilling. This kind of happiness in life should be a peaceful happiness, or a temporary kind of stimulation, or a happiness that comes from cutting off suffering. But the ultimate and profound happiness, we can certainly say, can be truly attained through studying certain fundamental truths and principles. From the Ekottara Agama, among all conceivable pleasures, this is truly the greatest and most profound joy. Among all possible forms of happiness, this is indeed the happiest and most blissful. There is certainly such a remarkable and extraordinary thing. So what does that mean? There was a Brahmin who was feeling very sad and deeply distressed. He then went to find a venerable and wise monk. The venerable monk was in a quiet place, enjoying the bliss of the Dharma, living very happily. This Brahmin was very wealthy. He went before the venerable monk and said, "You are truly the very happiest among all pleasures. Indeed, you are without a doubt the happiest of all." This venerable monk was probably an arhat. Whenever something like this appears in the Ekottara Agama, then the venerable monk asked, "Why is that?" He said, "I am in so much pain. Compared to you, I am truly suffering." The venerable monk asked, "How are you suffering?" He said, "I am truly and profoundly unfortunate." He continued, "Within a mere 7 days, all 7 of my beloved sons tragically passed away." He probably had quite a few young children at home. Then he sadly said, "Within just 6 short days, his beloved wife also died tragically." His close relatives and dear friends also died. His beloved brothers and dear sisters also tragically died. Even all the vast wealth in his royal treasury recently and mysteriously disappeared. By comparison, he was truly, truly suffering. Compared to him, it was clearly said that you are the one who is truly, genuinely happy, content, and happy in daily life. Maybe some of us still don't fully understand this profound concept, including those of us who constantly travel every day. They often wonder, why would one become a monk, and why do other individuals choose to practice? But in the actual process of their spiritual practice, it is observed that some practitioners do not perform well, and on the contrary, they may even encounter difficulties. There are also those who, unfortunately, fail in their practice. But for some practitioners, the profound happiness they attain is completely incomparable to the fleeting happiness of the mundane world. You could say it's a very stable happiness, a very profound happiness, because the pleasures we experience through our senses, they vanish in an instant, and in a very short period of time they are completely gone. For a moment it feels, wow, so joyful, but soon it's gone. So if we truly and genuinely seek profound happiness, the kind of enduring happiness that is profoundly gained from embracing the Buddha's timeless wisdom of true selflessness, then this pursuit is truly of immense and immeasurable value to our lives. So here it is also clearly mentioned that the Buddha, because he is like an old and wise father, is a compassionate guide, can be said to be the father of all sentient beings. He can find ways to help sentient beings truly attain it. But in this respect, some of us, whether truly experiencing the Buddha's wisdom of selflessness or the experience of a truly altruistic compassion, only then do we realize that, before I truly studied Buddhism, before I truly listened, contemplated, and practiced, my entire life was especially and profoundly miserable indeed. Back then, even though I had money, even though I was young, even though in many significant ways I was doing very well, that kind of life still felt profoundly full of constant anxiety, always fearing the inevitable gain and the subsequent loss. There was no real enduring meaning to it whatsoever. Although we have not yet attained the truly transcendent state of a first stage Bodhisattva, or higher, we are striving towards it. But the results of our worldly study and contemplation, in fact, whether it's the truth of all things in the world, or the realities of life, birth, aging, sickness, death, the suffering of separation from loved ones, the suffering of being with those we resent, and so on, when we fully understand these principles, we will realize, oh indeed, this very life, if you don't understand these truths, it's probably very difficult to face suffering. You will have such thoughts. So the Buddha told Shariputra, this is probably what the Tathagata was thinking, relying on the profound power of supernatural abilities and the immense power of wisdom, I have carefully set aside some truly skillful means and praised for sentient beings the Tathagata's knowledge and vision, the 10 powers, and the 4 kinds of fearlessness. Then sentient beings would not be able to truly attain complete liberation from the cycle of suffering. In other words, this is what the Buddha was thinking. If I were to only use my own existing knowledge, innate wisdom, and supernatural powers for this particular situation, and did not use skillful means and directly praised or expounded upon the profound teachings of the Tathagata to sentient beings, thereby guiding them, proclaiming the Tathagata's knowledge and vision, powers and fearlessness, and directly explaining the Tathagata's Dharma to them, then sentient beings would have no way to attain liberation. So sometimes some people may have a good grasp of Madhyamaka or are quite proficient in Buddhist logic. But when you want to help sentient beings, you have to consider the situation and their capacities. Otherwise, even if you hold the Prasangika Madhyamaka view, if the sentient beings you are teaching, for example, someone from our institute recently went to a particular city in Sichuan province, China. He had just diligently studied the profound and intricate fundamental wisdom of the middle way, and he finally managed to successfully gather a dedicated group of devoted followers. However, these followers were primarily elderly laywomen, all well over 70 or even 80 years of age. Nevertheless, this remarkable Dharma teacher meticulously taught them the most incredibly profound and subtly nuanced points of the Prasangika Madhyamaka. These elderly laywomen still listened very respectfully. They listened quite well too. But after the entire class session was completely finished, it was widely said that, "Master, your lecture was indeed wonderful. But honestly, we didn't understand a single thing, because he spoke directly and he himself had just started learning the fundamental wisdom of the middle way too." Then he went straight to teach those elderly laywomen in their 70s and 80s. When he spoke to them directly like that, they simply couldn't take it in. So for us Dharma teachers, it's actually very important to know how to teach the Dharma Especially here at our esteemed institute now, we often have many tourists and devoted pilgrims coming by to visit. Some of them genuinely have faith, while others, conversely, do not. Some may even harbor wrong views or prejudices, but for people like this, we've also been discussing and considering their perspectives to giving them Dharma texts in the future to form a karmic connection. This way, at the very least, it certainly won't have a negative effect. We also sincerely hope to provide some free Dharma books here. And the Dharma teachers should also give this some thought. When I used to visit some Han Chinese temples, I often thought, wow, there are so many tourists in Han Chinese regions. See if these Dharma teachers can give a lecture every day specifically for these tourists. For example, when we go to a tourist attraction, the tourism advertisements or introductions usually say, at 7:30 in the evening, there will be a dance over there. There will be a very dance performance at that time. Or at exactly 5:50 sharp, there will be some kind of entertaining monkey show performance over there today. Almost every popular tourist scenic spot has something exciting like this for visiting tourists. If we have, say, some visiting tourists at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a certain esteemed Dharma teacher could give a half-hour Dharma talk. If we do it this way, maybe, these Dharma teachers shouldn't directly talk about the Prasangika Madhyamaka view or the 4 distinct stages of Dzogchen, because most people probably wouldn't understand any of that at all, or even comprehend its profound implications. Some of the Tibetan Dharma teachers at our institute now, when interacting with some leaders, often say, as practitioners in this quiet and contemplative place, we must truly develop renunciation. However, they do not fully understand these terms at all. I told them, don't mention renunciation, because if you talk about developing renunciation in a quiet place within the Buddhist community, renunciation and bodhicitta are very important. But for people who have never heard these terms before, it's as if you didn't say anything at all. So some of our Dharma teachers are also considering what would be better. I used to think this way myself, but now, as the number of people at the Institute keeps increasing, it seems like I don't have time myself either. And when it comes to arranging things for others, I'm also not sure about the best approach. The Dharma teachers, each of them, their daily teaching schedules are also very full. So if we have to teach every day, it's a bit difficult. Previously, we talked about the Wisdom and Compassion Salon. The Wisdom and Compassion Salon played a very significant role. Now, we are also conducting this online. There are also many people listening. So we also hope that the Dharma teachers will take it very seriously. Of course, as for the Dharma teachers, sometimes as they become more and more well-known, they start to ignore me. But for now, things are still okay. Usually, I start by promoting the Dharma teachers, and as they become more and more famous, it's fine if they ignore me, but sometimes things can get out of control. If things get out of control, some new Dharma teachers, when they reach a certain point, might also, if they do well, it's great. If not, it's a bit worrying. But no matter what the specific circumstances, we absolutely shouldn't let the concerns about losing just 1 or 2 particular people cause us to miss out on many other valuable opportunities. I've noticed that other diverse sects and various religions, and even some worldly things like advertising and promotion, how they do it, such truly wonderful nectar-like teachings of the Tathagata. Indeed, if we selfishly keep them to ourselves, it might not be so good. So we need to see what would be best. Of course, in the process of spreading the Dharma, just as I mentioned earlier, if the Tathagata also abandoned skillful means and spoke to them directly, it might not necessarily be beneficial. So as we study the Lotus Sutra this time, I hope that whether you are a layperson or a monastic, whoever you are, you will also understand this in your own practice, that some of the Buddha's teachings are skillful means. And when we guide others, we should also do it gradually, step by step. Just like in the Nirvana Sutra, using the analogy of a ladder, one must progress diligently and systematically, moving step by step in a very orderly and structured way. This gradual and methodical advancement is indeed profoundly important and crucial. Now, let's carefully see how it is clearly explained next here today. If the enlightened Buddha were to directly teach the most profound and deeply secret meaning, it would be completely impossible to liberate all sentient beings. Why is that exactly? Because ordinary sentient beings, as it is said in Tibetan, are especially attached to the 5 desires. And these sentient beings, who are deeply immersed in their existence, are particularly and profoundly fond of the transient pleasures and fleeting delights of the 3 realms. The pleasures of the form realm, the formless realm, and the 3 realms as a whole. They have not escaped birth, aging, sickness, and death, as well as sorrow, grief, suffering, and so on. They are completely engulfed deep in the vast turbulent sea of suffering and intense raging fire of the 3 realms. They are constantly tormented and painfully burned by it every single day. So how could they possibly directly understand the Buddha's most profound and secret meaning or wisdom? Because every single day they are constantly attached to the worldly pleasures and desires, and they have not truly realized the profound selflessness of persons, nor the complete selflessness of all phenomena. So if they themselves are being scorched by the intense flames, how could they truly comprehend the Buddha's secret intent from within that? This is very extremely difficult. Therefore, we must truly understand this profound principle. When the Buddha taught sentient beings, he also skillfully used various expedient means. When we endeavor to help all sentient beings, it's precisely like when Manjushri Bodhisattva went among the non-Buddhists and engaged with them. At first, he simply entered into the non-Buddhist community. Later, it seemed that just joining them and learning together wasn't enough. So he played the role of a complete non-Buddhist himself. He even began to speak of the faults of Shakyamuni Buddha. At that precise point, many of the non-Buddhists became extremely happy and excited indeed. Oh, now we've finally found a really good disciple, they thought joyfully. Who would have ever known that Manjushri Bodhisattva was actually a clever undercover agent? So they kept carefully nurturing him all along, quite patiently. Finally, when all his close friends truly trusted him completely, one special day he gently said, "Maybe we should also seriously consider something important together. Is the Buddha's wisdom truly flawed or not, in your honest opinion?" By that time, they trusted him more, so they observed together, and during the process of observation, they discovered it turned out that the Buddha's wisdom was indeed extremely profound and far-reaching. At that significant point, he began to carefully explain the profound Buddhist teachings to them, but even the compassionate Buddha himself permitted such actions. So sometimes the application of skillful means is truly and profoundly very important. This is also explicitly stated in the 400 verses on the middle way. The 400 verses on the middle way says, sometimes as their devoted disciple, sometimes as their wise teacher, using various skillful means to help sentient beings understand. As for sometimes as their disciple, sometimes the Buddha would appear as their disciple. And sometimes he would appear as their teacher, sometimes as their teacher. Then, using various skillful means, no matter what the situation, sometimes he would act as a Brahmin, sometimes as a teacher, sometimes as an instructor, sometimes as a disciple, using various skillful means to help sentient beings understand. This allows sentient beings to fully realize the true nature of all phenomena. Therefore, when we are guiding sentient beings, in fact, some Dharma teachers are quite skillful in their methods. Sometimes they act as Dharma teachers, teaching from the Dharma seat, and sometimes indeed they act just like dedicated disciples, joining in with others so that, for example, some of the people in their class are invited to teach, while the teacher attentively listens and observes. This is also a kind of manifestation, isn't it? There are all sorts of ways to guide sentient beings. Actually, this is very important. As I've said before, as Buddhists, whether we are monastics or lay people, sometimes we may feel the need to put on an act, but our inner mind may not necessarily be like that at all. For example, some truly highly accomplished and renowned great masters, indeed, they are able to unite very well with many religions in the world and can build extremely strong and meaningful relationships. Moreover, many of them frequently go into these various religious communities, actively participating in their sacred rituals, including some melodic chanting and many other diverse and engaging activities. But some of us, who are more conservative Buddhists, can be especially rigid to the point where we don't even dare to look at their churches or even their religious institutions, saying, don't go, that's an outside path, don't go in. Don't interact with this person. You can't associate with them. Of course, sometimes there are certain boundaries in the precepts, but in reality, this is something the Buddha spoke about on another level. Therefore, according to the Mahayana Buddhist ideal of benefiting all sentient beings, we can make contact with any sentient being in the world. But the way in which we interact with others has its own inherent limits, and this also truly requires wisdom. Therefore, as we just mentioned, if the Buddha were to directly teach them profound Dharma principles, he would not be able to benefit sentient beings because they wouldn't be able to understand. These beings are still deeply attached as long as they have not realized the non-self of persons. However, if he uses skillful means to gradually guide them in this way, then there is a significant and profound chance to truly benefit all sentient beings. So, in the continuous and diligent process of studying and practicing the Dharma, we should always employ appropriate and highly effective skillful means. Next it says, Shariputra, as for this elder, although he is physically very strong and robust, he does not actually use his inherent strength. He is indeed quite strong and truly wanted to pick up his beloved children and swiftly run out with them away from the danger, but he did not use his own strength. If he were to force them like that, it seems the effect would not be good. He should use a gentler or a warmer approach, or perhaps a more gentle approach, primarily to entice and to guide, to effectively clear the way. In fact, the intricate relationships between people are sometimes quite similar to this as well, requiring a similar delicate touch. It's very important to clear up blockages when they occur. The more blocked things get, the more likely it is. Relationships are like this. For example, when a relationship between two people isn't good, some use a tough approach, fighting fire with fire. However, it is important to consider that the potential ramifications or consequences, even though he is really very strong, he doesn't use his strength. He always only uses very skillful and effective means to save his own beloved children from the intense suffering they were enduring inside the burning house. He carefully shows them the appealing toys of the three carts as a clear and compelling example of what awaits them. But after they are finally freed from their perilous situation, each and every one of them receives a truly great and magnificent cart, generously filled with precious and invaluable treasures. At first he uses ordinary simple carts, and then he uses various toys to lure them outside. Once they're outside, then this generous old wealthy benefactor truly has plenty of great wealth and abundant money, carefully stored away safely indeed. There was once a very successful big business boss from northern Harbin who respectfully came to personally visit our peaceful Buddhist academy. I truly want to recite sutras for my dear children, my entire family, and all those I care for, and also for the people in my factory. I want to recite more sutras for them, for their well-being and spiritual growth. I possess a considerable amount of financial resources. Indeed, I have an abundance of money at my disposal. He generously donated a significant sum to the esteemed academy, and subsequently, at a later point in time, he further contributed an additional 3,000 yuan, demonstrating his continued philanthropic spirit. I truly want to recite sacred sutras for them, as I have a substantial amount of money. That old, wise elder was exactly the same way, just as he had always been. Didn't we clearly say yesterday together, he confidently said he had plenty of money and wealth available to him now. He generously gave each of them a magnificent large cart, which was completely filled to the brim with an abundance of precious and invaluable treasures. The Tathagata is the same, although he possesses immense and boundless power. For example, the 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, the 18 unique qualities, and so on. But in front of sentient beings, he did not directly teach the highest and most profound Dharma. He taught the 84,000 Dharma gates, or you could say, turned the Dharma wheel 3 times. Step by step, first teaching the 4 Noble Truths, then dependent origination, and then teaching the Bodhisattva vehicle like this. This is truly using great wisdom and skillful means compassionately, giving both wisdom and skillful means perfectly. He rescued all sentient beings from the burning house of the 3 realms. He taught them the 3 vehicles. So what are the 3 vehicles? The Śrāvaka vehicle, the Pratyekabuddha vehicle, which is also called the solitary realizer vehicle, and the Buddha vehicle. He spoke of the Buddha vehicle and also of the Bodhisattva vehicle. After explaining these 3 vehicles, he continued to say, do not become attached to or remain in the burning house of samsara. If we look at ourselves, sentient beings truly are often caught in the cycle of samsara. Do not become attached to the coarse and impure pleasures of the 5 desires, form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. In fact, these forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and touches are all unreal. They do not truly exist. Yet we sentient beings are constantly attached to them. If we remain attached, if this stream of craving is never interrupted, then the fierce and relentless fire of immense suffering will inevitably consume us entirely. Therefore, you must act quickly and decisively in the shortest possible time to completely escape from the confines of the 3 realms. You must attain the 3 vehicles. You will attain the 3 vehicles. The 3 vehicles to be attained are exactly what we discussed earlier, the Śrāvaka vehicle, the Pratyekabuddha vehicle, and the Bodhisattva vehicle. In the Mahayana Sutra of Questions by the elder Mahastamaprapta, it is also explained that the so-called 3 vehicles, some sentient beings, because they are weary of samsara and wish to attain liberation for themselves, are taught the Dharma of the 4 Noble Truths. This is called the Śrāvaka vehicle. Some sentient beings wish to attain liberation on their own, so they are taught the dharma of the 12 links of dependent origination. This is called the Pratyekabuddha vehicle. There are some sentient beings to whom one can teach Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, unsurpassed, complete enlightenment. This can be called the Bodhisattva vehicle. In the Mahayana Sutra of Questions by the elder Mahastamaprapta, it specifically discusses the 3 vehicles, their different practices and different dharma methods. Therefore, in different sutras, the Buddha expounded the 3 vehicles to us, allowing us to choose for ourselves which one to follow. Actually, Tibetan Buddhism is quite inclusive in this regard. It also teaches the Śrāvaka vehicle and the Pratyekabuddha vehicle. Then both the exoteric and esoteric vehicles are explained to everyone, with many principles being taught. During the teaching process, some people may prefer to practice the 4 Noble Truths. Some prefer to practice the 12 links of dependent origination. Some start off gradually, progressing from the 4 Noble Truths and the 12 links of dependent origination all the way to the Mahayana teachings of the 37 factors of enlightenment, constantly engaging in these practices. This is also a very good method. The Buddha said, today I can absolutely guarantee this for you without any doubt. The teachings of the 3 vehicles that I have always expounded to you contain not the slightest falsehood or any deceptive words whatsoever. You can also diligently, even if you are feeling very relaxed and at ease, still diligently and consistently study and practice such profound and authentic Buddha Dharma, which is truly beneficial. Therefore, regarding the profound teachings of the Buddha, we sentient beings also truly need to be diligent and assiduous in our practice. If we are not diligent and do not make a sufficient effort, even worldly matters cannot be easily accomplished, let alone the profound and intricate principles of Buddhism. The Tathagata wisely uses such skillful methods to enable all sentient beings to ultimately attain liberation. It can also be said this way, you should know, that the teachings of the 3 vehicles are in fact praised by all Buddhas of the 3 times. Moreover, the practice of these 3 vehicles brings freedom to both body and mind without any constraints. One also attains a state of having nothing to truly rely on and nothing to seek. As the profound saying indeed goes, when a person seeks nothing, their character naturally becomes very noble. In our worldly life, it is also often said that when a person reaches a spiritual state where there is absolutely nothing left to seek anymore, of course there are some people who seem lazy and don't want to do anything at all, but this does not truly indicate a high level of character. We should reach a certain deeper level of genuine wisdom, and in fact at that point there is nothing left to seek. Here, the vehicle being discussed actually refers to the 3 vehicles. The 3 vehicles use the 5 faculties and 5 powers free from defilements, the 7 factors of enlightenment and the Noble Eightfold Path, as well as the 4 deep dhyanas, the 4 formless absorptions, the 8 complete liberations, and so on, as their primary means of spiritual enjoyment, personal meditative play, and useful tools. These important practices are all within the traditional 3 vehicles. In other words, what is ultimately attained in the 3 vehicles? It is something truly very exalted, fully embodying the profound meaning of the 3 vehicles, and within it there are all kinds of delightful entertainments, and all sorts of precious instruments for play are completely and abundantly present. At this point one attains boundless peace and happiness. When we reach the profound state of Buddhahood, or the elevated stage of a Bodhisattva, it is not at all like what we typically experience in the transient mundane world. The kinds of happiness that are inherently contaminated, fleetingly impermanent, and profoundly unstable, indeed much of the happiness we currently have now is actually an inherently unstable form of happiness. When the temporary conditions come together, it seems like we gain a kind of happiness. But in reality, in the very end, it is not true happiness, not genuine contentment. I once read a work from the Sui dynasty by Wang Tong called Zhongshu. In Zhongshu it says, if you associate with others based on power, when the power is gone, the relationship collapses. If you interact with others through power, then once the power is gone, the relationship is severed and no longer exists. If you associate with others for profit, when the profit is exhausted, you part ways. If you interact with others based on personal gain, once the benefit is used up, then the connection may diminish or cease to exist. People will eventually drift apart. Nowadays, some truly great masters and certain insightful people say, if you associate with others based purely on fleeting emotion, when that emotion inevitably ends, it often brings significant pain. Only by truly connecting heart to heart with genuine understanding can the relationship endure for a considerably long time. There are some who have added a few words like this, but in fact in ancient times, Wang Tong was from the Sui dynasty, and he was also an educator and a literary scholar. What he wrote is still absolutely correct and true today. What does it really mean exactly? It means that if we interact with each other based purely on worldly power, if we make friends through political power, once that power eventually fails or completely collapses, then the relationship between us is already severed. There is nothing left. If we associate with each other based on mutual interests, where both sides benefit, then once those interests are exhausted, people will disperse. What many people say nowadays is also correct. If we build relationships based on emotions, those feelings might break off. Once they break apart suddenly, it ends in serious mutual harm, and both sides lose absolutely everything completely. The same basic principle applies universally everywhere. Nowadays, when someone holds a high position of power, everyone around seems very respectful and full of enthusiastic praise. But once they no longer need anything from him, no one pays him any attention. So, for example, relationships built on power or influence, or those formed through authority or money, are often quite fragile. These things may bring you only temporary happiness, but it's fleeting. But in reality, that's not truly the case. So we often reflect, for instance, on the significant relationship between teachers and their students. If their interactions and mutual respect are genuinely based on reciprocal benefit, then once there is no longer a need, the emotional bond between people disappears. But if dedicated teachers and devoted students from the very depths of their sincere hearts establish an everlasting, truly wise and spiritual connection, then that should be completely different. It's just exactly like in traditional Buddhism. For example, a Vajra master, or during the entire process of introducing Buddhism, if you truly discover the original nature of your mind within yourself, then at that very point, whether the master is present or not, it doesn't actually depend on whether the master is there or not. For example, many of us ordinary Buddhists, why are we so grateful to our root guru? Even though the guru has already left this world, we still always keep them in our thoughts. Or every single word the guru said, everyone remembers very clearly. What is the reason for this? It's because this is not a conditional kind of love. It's not that I treat you well only when you treat me well. And if you truly don't treat me well, then I absolutely won't treat you well either. Sometimes when you treat me exceptionally well, I treat you extremely well, as if you were my very own body. But once you stop treating me well, not only do I stop treating you well, I might even be willing to cut a piece of flesh from your body without any hesitation whatsoever today. Nowadays, many superficial friendships in the modern world are selfishly conditional like this. But in spiritual reality, for example, the sacred relationship between a wise guru and devoted disciple is not truly based on a mutually beneficial and enduring relationship. If it were solely based on fleeting interests, once those interests are significantly threatened, not only would both sides immediately stop caring about each other, but you might even intentionally seek to harm the other person, leading to conflict and animosity. But if it's not like that, and he truly uses skillful means to help you genuinely understand the profound dharma, then that is a kind of eternal happiness. So here we also say, when we obtain the Buddha's undefiled wealth, it is not just a temporary happiness, but a profound and truly lasting inner peace and contentment. It should be an eternal, boundless, and truly profound peace and joy. I think many of us who practice regularly can deeply feel this, but if you talk about this with ordinary people, it might not make complete sense to them, or you just can't explain it clearly and comprehensively. No matter how you carefully explain it, they'll invariably say, that's absolutely impossible. As long as there's mutual benefit between people, they can certainly get along. If people don't insult me, I won't insult them. But once someone insults me, I'll hate them. This is just an inevitable law. They have their own rules, and we also acknowledge that such rules exist in the world. But sometimes a kind of freedom in practice that transcends these rules can indeed be attained in Mahayana Buddhism. Each of us ordinary people can also achieve this in the process of practice. But this particular method is a little bit different from our usual way of thinking, and indeed from our everyday way of life. It's somewhat different, you see. Our values usually may have always been from the education your parents gave you since childhood to the wisdom you learned from books, have never been like this. This particular path is somewhat at odds with them, but in actual fact, the true wisdom of being completely free from all desires that we speak of is something we really hope every Dharma friend can realize in the process of seeking the Dharma, to truly and deeply recognize the innermost part of one's own mind and to understand its profound complexities. At this time, one should know for oneself who in this world is truly a genuine friend and who is an undeniable enemy. In the profound face of such wisdom, it may indeed be impossible to distinguish between enemies and friends. When you are unable to make this important distinction, people in the world around you may not quite fully understand you. They may indeed feel that this particular person doesn't seem to truly understand the established rules. But in a certain and truly profound sense, this is actually the highest state of spiritual practice and a deep understanding. Is there much left? Not much, right? I'll just say a little more. What should I talk about? Where were we? Right, the Buddha, the enlightened one, told his esteemed disciple, Shariputra, if there are sentient beings or living beings with consciousness who possess the profound and inherent Tathagata Garbha of wisdom within them, which is the fundamental Buddha nature, or such intrinsic and deep wisdom, and they hear the Dharma from the Buddha, the world-honored one, and develop great and unwavering faith in it, and diligently and consistently practice the profound teachings of the Buddha, then in a short time they will attain nirvana and liberation from the three realms. This vehicle is called the Śrāvakayana, or the vehicle of hearers. They must practice the Four Noble Truths, diligently cultivating the path. In the end, they attain nirvana and liberation from the three realms. This is called the Śrāvakayana. This is quite equivalent to the child of the elder just now, who earnestly sought various toys to play with. In the end, he specifically asks for the goat cart, much like escaping from the burning house, a truly perilous situation. This is the first type. Then there are other sentient beings. If some sentient beings hear the Buddha's teachings from the world-honored one and listen to the teachings of the 12 links of dependent origination, they diligently practice seeking their own innate wisdom and are willing to live alone in quiet, secluded places. Of course, as for Pratyekabuddhas, there are those who live among groups, as well as those likened to the solitary unicorn's horn who live entirely alone in profound isolation. There are different categories. In the end, he deeply realizes that all phenomena arise due to causes and conditions. When he fully comprehends both the arising and cessation of dependent origination, this particular vehicle is specifically called the Pratyekabuddha vehicle. He is just like, among the many children of the elder mentioned earlier, some who earnestly seek the deer cart, thereby escaping from the deep pit of fire that is the three realms of existence. However, in the Tibetan version, it seems that these two distinct vehicles, the deer cart and the goat cart, are presented in a somewhat different manner. The traditional analogy for the Śrāvaka is clearly given as the swift deer cart. In the classical analogy for Pratyekabuddhas, the sturdy goat cart is used. But it seems that the analogy in the Chinese translation version is actually a bit better overall, because after all, Śrāvakas are naturally part of a spiritual group. For example, among enlightened Śrāvakas, there are many accomplished arhats. They naturally belong to a spiritual group together always, and as for wild deer, there are also large herds naturally living among them peacefully. When I used to herd cattle, I often saw herds of deer, but most of the time they are solitary creatures as well. In the vast mountains and dense forests, they often prefer to walk alone. So perhaps the deer cart is an analogy for Pratyekabuddhas. The method used in the Chinese version might be more suitable. Also, as for sentient beings, if they listen to the Buddha's teachings in the presence of the world-honored one, and after developing faith, diligently practice the Mahayana teachings, seeking all-knowing wisdom, Buddha's wisdom, innate wisdom, and unlearned wisdom, actually, these are just different names for the same thing. In other words, it refers to the great wisdom of the Buddha in the Mahayana. Then the Tathagata's knowledge and views, powers and fearlessness, all of these are sought and fully attained. Moreover, he compassionately thinks of the happiness and has great compassion for all these sentient beings. He compassionately thinks of the happiness of countless sentient beings, bringing happiness to innumerable beings. He benefits all gods and humans. truly liberating all suffering beings completely. What is this profound spiritual path actually called? This is called the Mahayana, the great vehicle. A bodhisattva who earnestly seeks this sacred vehicle is called a Mahasattva. Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Bodhisattva, great Bodhisattva.
The
phrase Senwa Senwa Kimbo is quite significant. In our rich Tibetan language, Senwa Senwa is frequently used, which is very similar to Maha Mahasattva. Actually, it also profoundly exists within Chinese Buddhism. For example, the phrase Namo so and so Bodhisattva Mahasattva is a common and significant expression. Shangyungai Bodhisattva, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. In the morning and evening recitations in Chinese Buddhism, the chanting is extremely long. Yes, it is very long when chanting Shangyungai Bodhisattva. Shangyungai Bodhisattva comes from the ancient revered Golden Light Sutra. Said that by relying on the power of this Bodhisattva, the fragrant clouds become especially abundant and widespread, like a vast canopy of clouds, and are then duly offered to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Usually very early in the morning in Chinese Buddhist temples, some people are slowly dozing off while others are loudly chanting and singing. And the chanting is especially long. The Mahasattva part is drawn out very, very slowly. Sometimes I think when our institute holds the Vajra Recitation Dharma Assembly, the Tibetan Refuge and Bodhicitta prayers at the beginning are also chanted for a long time. There are also many rituals in Tibetan, just like some of the rituals in Chinese. They are chanted for an especially long time. Some people are truly chanting, while others are peacefully dozing off and having sweet dreams. So we often say Bodhisattva Mahasattva. Mahasattva in this context truly means a great Bodhisattva. Shankya Senhua Senhua Kimbo. Senhua Senhua in its true meaning means Mahamahasattva. Senhua Senhua, Bodhisattva Bodhisattva. How do you say it? In the Tibetan language, it is consistently expressed in this manner. This profound and significant phrase, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, refers to a great being who has embodying immense compassion and wisdom. A Tang Dynasty text, the essential collection of Mahayana Bodhisattva practices from various sutras, states in a passage, Master Jiyan, some say he translated it, others say he compiled it. This text comprehensively discusses the Śrāvakayana, Pratyekabuddhayana, and Bodhisattvayana. All three vehicles involve the generation of bodhicitta, which is the awakened mind. It's just that for the Śrāvakayana and the Pratyekabuddhayana, they do not actively promote the profound teachings of the Mahayana, a significant branch of Buddhism, nor do they encourage or help sentient beings to attain complete liberation. They also do not show respect or make offerings to sons of the Buddha in the Mahayana. When they actually see certain people coming, they neither greet them nor feel truly happy at all. This is the way of the Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas. Bodhisattvas, conversely, are the opposite. They seek to benefit and bring happiness to all sentient beings. They greet everyone they meet with joy. Some of our dedicated Dharma teachers and our welcoming reception staff are here to assist you. When they see new lay practitioners or new Buddhists, or even some newcomers who are not Buddhists, they feel very resistant. Don't come.
You can't attend the class. Please leave.
This is the kind of attitude found in the Śrāvaka and Pratyekabuddha paths. It says here, neither welcoming nor joyful. They neither greet people nor feel happy. If one sees someone coming, they neither greet nor rejoice. When they see someone arriving, they neither welcome them nor feel happy. But in the Bodhisattva path, after one has genuinely generated bodhicitta, they will wholeheartedly welcome others and feel truly joyful. Whenever they see sentient beings, regardless of who they are, they want to first plant a virtuous seed for them, to leave them with a very good impression indeed. For some, it might be their first class, and also their last class. So it's important to leave them with a very good impression. Sometimes at night I think about those who come to attend the lectures. Some of them actually get up and quietly leave halfway through. Others, however, endure the whole lecture with considerable difficulty. They keep checking their watches and have very dissatisfied expressions, but they still manage to sit through the entire class. This is also something that is truly to be warmly welcomed. In the future, if some of you who do not possess faith come to listen to these lectures, I will also act in the spirit of the Bodhisattva path and wholeheartedly welcome you to attend. For those who don't need an empowerment or anything like that, that's fine too. Some of you, of course, have your own friends and family and loved ones. Of course, don't force them or drag them into the temple against their will. That's not good either. We shouldn't promote these things in a forceful way. But if some people genuinely and truly want to come and have a look, to listen for a little bit, to hear the distinct sounds of our chanting before and after class, then the inherent virtues of their Buddha nature will be awakened. Some people, through certain teachings, gradually and slowly, by reading a book or meeting a teacher, for these reasons, slowly plant virtuous roots. At the very least, they are planting virtuous roots. So, when we Mahayana Buddhists form meaningful connections with all sentient beings, we should always have a truly joyful and compassionate attitude. This is indeed very important. In our typical study group sessions, for example, it is quite common to find that there are often many auditors present. Some of these study groups are indeed very welcoming and hospitable to auditors. Not only do they readily allow them to attend their classes, but they even go so far as to offer them their favorite foods and a variety of fresh fruits. All of these essential things can be provided for them. However, some individuals are especially dissatisfied and they forcefully slam the door shut.
Don't come here, don't come here. You absolutely cannot come here. We are people who diligently study Mahayana Buddhism, but you people are certainly not allowed to come here.
This kind of narrow attitude isn't right at all in the future. Since we are earnestly studying Mahayana Buddhism together, then we should warmly welcome everyone with compassion, right? Welcome absolutely everyone. Next, the Buddha gently tells Shariputra, just now this was the ox cart, the great ox cart. It's like in the cartoon, in the end everything turns into ox carts, right? There was an animated version of the Lotus Sutra made in Taiwan before, I forgot the name. The Buddha tells Shariputra, when this elder saw these children safe and sound, having successfully escaped from the burning house and reached a place without any fear or danger whatsoever, he also thought happily to himself, now I have plenty of money readily available. So he generously gives each of them a very good and beautiful cart today, treating them all completely equally with genuine love. The Tathagata is precisely the same way. He is indeed the compassionate father of all sentient beings. After observing and encountering countless sentient beings, the Buddha also consistently employs this profound and effective method to help them escape the suffering, fear, and danger of the three realms, and ultimately attain the peace and happiness of nirvana. At this moment, the Tathagata thinks, I too possess boundless and infinite wisdom, power, fearlessness, and so on. These undefiled Dharma treasures of the Buddha, all these sentient beings are truly, indeed, my beloved children. I should give them the Mahayana teachings equally. I should not let them have their own separate ways. Because if they are liberated through their own ways, such as the Śrāvaka vehicle or the Pratyekabuddha vehicle, it is impossible to truly liberate them. This is a selfish view. One should not use one's own Śrāvaka or Pratyekabuddha methods for liberation. Instead, it should be through the Tathagata's way, ultimately attaining liberation through the profound non-dual Dharma gate of Mahayana Buddhism. This is precisely the way they should be liberated. If these sentient beings are to escape the cycle of rebirth within the three realms, they should be given common toys of entertainment, such as the Buddha's profound meditative concentration, ultimate wisdom, and complete liberation. Give them these items of one form and one kind. One form and one kind in Tibetan means single color. When Han Dharma masters explain this, they say one form refers to ultimate reality and one kind refers to omniscient wisdom. But in Tibetan, the meaning is, all the truly entertaining and profound wisdoms the Buddha just mentioned are of one singular color. This one unique color is actually praised by all the revered sages of the 10 directions. Moreover, it can give rise to the purest and most subtle happiness. It should be considered the most incomparable and supreme wisdom in our entire world. The Buddha told Shariputra that at first the elder used 3 carts to entice the children, and then gave them the great cart. This great cart was also adorned with the 7 precious jewels. Moreover, it was especially comfortable and supremely peaceful. However, the elder did not actually speak falsely in any way, shape or form at all, and was not at fault in this regard. Because at the beginning he said, "Come here, and I will give you carts." Later they had already left behind that suffering. In the same way, so it is with the Tathagata. The Tathagata also does not speak falsely. At first, he teaches the Dharma of the three vehicles to guide sentient beings, but in the end, he delivers all sentient beings solely through the great vehicle. Why is it that he is not at fault for false speech and does not make this mistake? Because the Tathagata possesses immeasurable wisdom, fearlessness, the 10 powers and so forth, these Dharma treasures. He is able to bestow the Dharma of the great vehicle upon all sentient beings. However, if we were to give it directly to sentient beings, these sentient beings would not be able to accept it. If from the very beginning all of the Buddha's one vehicle teachings were given to sentient beings, these sentient beings would simply be unable to accept them. Therefore, the Buddha had no choice but to employ the conditions of the three vehicles. The Buddha told Shariputra that this was the reason. One should understand that the Buddha, relying on his skillful means, first needed to teach the three vehicles. In reality, the Buddha truly teaches the one vehicle, but with the one vehicle, he expounds the three vehicles in front of different sentient beings. In the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, it is said, when we speak of liberating all sentient beings, what does it mean to liberate them? If they can be liberated through the Śrāvaka vehicle, Pratyekabuddha vehicle, or Buddha vehicle, then we use those to liberate them. If they cannot be liberated by these three vehicles, then we use the human and heavenly vehicle to liberate them. If they cannot even accept the human and heavenly vehicle, then we can give them food and clothing of the human world to satisfy their needs. If even this is not possible, then we should cultivate compassion in our hearts. This is called liberating all sentient beings. Therefore, in Mahayana Buddhism, we speak of liberating all sentient beings. But it does not mean that every sentient being has truly been delivered to the other shore. It depends on individual capacities. If you can place them in the Śrāvaka or Pratyekabuddha vehicle, that's excellent. If not, see if they can attain blessings of human heavenly realms. If even this is not possible, extensive biography of the Buddha, giving someone a little bit of nourishing food, a sweet lollipop, or a delightful piece of chocolate, or offering them a cup of coffee. This too is benefiting sentient beings. If you can't even do this, if you have no money and nothing at all, and then you think, I can't do anything. But for those who cultivate bodhicitta to liberate and benefit sentient beings, what is this called? This is liberating sentient beings. Each wants to liberate sentient beings, but not everyone has the ability to liberate sentient beings. At the very least, we should cultivate compassion in our hearts. This is something we should have. According to Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, there are stages to liberating sentient beings. There are those who can cultivation of bodhicitta in hearts, finding comfort and ease in meditation and in the illusoriness of things. Discuss this. If we contemplate and cultivate bodhicitta in our hearts, in fact, the merit and power of this are extremely great. That's all for today's lesson. Thanks.
Sonam dei tamse rupanya tonne de dhamma pase kirgana jirano chupai chupun sonen droa droa
bandangara badna Sodargye bandangara badna Sodargye bandangara badna Sodargye